Who Shot J.R. episode was almost an accident.
I believe you knew that. You'll regret this.
Is that a threat, Vaughn?
The cast members were the last people to know.
You're a drunk and unfit mother.
Everybody wanted desperately to know the answer. Who shot J.R.?
I've put up with all the wheeling and dealing and backstabbing that I'm going to.
So they just said, let's shoot the son of a bitch and see what happens.
He's got to be stopped.
I don't know if I could summarize Dallas because I've never quite understood it. It just was the right show for a specific era in American history with some wonderful characters and some terrific actors playing the parts that captured the world's imagination as no show had ever done before.
Dallas was bigger than life, I suppose, to give you a big overview. It was Texas, it was the 80s, it was the Reagan era. You know, everything bigger than life. You know, shoulder pads, hairdos, jewelry, cars, you know, the whole thing.
Dallas was a show about family, and we can all relate. We all have family.
How do you stand on this?
You don't have to ask, Vaughn. The Ewings are a family.
It was a very wealthy family, hard-working family, hard-drinking family, and it was about all the relationships.
Little by little, J.R. emerged from the shadows to become the main reason, the driving force behind all the shows. And that was directly because of Larry Hagman's portrayal.
Hagman was sort of the leader of the parade when it came to Dallas. We all took our cues off of him after the first season, and he was the undisputed central figure on the show. It was his behavior and his attitude and his work ethic that set the standard for the show.
I remember he called in after reading it, and he said, well, how do we understand J.R. Ewing? I said, well, he's the eldest, and he's taken on all the responsibility of the family, and he's increased the worth of the riches of the family 50-fold, and his father still likes his little brother best. And the actor was happy with that, and he said, well, how are we going to make him more sympathetic? And I kind of looked at the others in the room, and they said, go ahead. I said, well, I don't think we are. I think what he's discovered is that he likes being bad.
I don't have anything to apologize for. And the explanation is very simple. You gambled and you lost.
Now, he would never admit that he likes being bad. He thinks that way. He thinks you screw them before they screw you. That's how the world works. That's how business works. But he's really creative at it.
Well, I figure your share ought to be about $500,000 a year. Harry, this is what I want you to do. Close down that field. That's right. Shut down every single well.
And so since every time he outsmarts somebody, he thinks of himself as outsmarting somebody who would have outsmarted him, taken advantage of him, he gets great pleasure out of it. And then what Larry Hagman did is take that and really make it lusty. You know, he just loved being bad.
Are you trying to flatter me or insult me? I can't make out which.
Well, every time they said J.R. enters the office with a scowl on his face and everybody is worried. His secretaries are intimidated. And I always came on with a smile on my face, which made him really worried. So I kind of played against type there, and I played him like a human being. He was just used to being in control and expected it, didn't think anything about it, really. And he enjoyed life, and he enjoyed handing out revenge and so forth. He was a vengeful guy in a way, but he took a great deal of pleasure in it, which made him kind of interesting.
The thing that made J.R. Ewing so cool was that he would do terrible things, but he'd do it with that little smile, and you just want to smack him because it didn't seem like it was bad.
And all the bad stuff kind of trickled down to me. Bobby turned out to be a good guy, and Mama was wonderful, and Daddy was great, you know, and I was just the bad guy. So that was like a license to steal as far as I was concerned. Bad guys seemed to have more fun than anybody else. You know, poor old Bobby. I mean, I love Patrick Duffy, and he had the hardest job to play in the whole show because he was the guy with the morals, and I was the amoral guy. I got the women, and I got the money, and I got to stab him in the back at least 3 times a year, and it was really fun for me.
One of the greatest discrepancies, for the want of a better word, in the industry was not recognizing Hagman's portrayal as J.R. on Dallas. One of the great acting jobs in television.
J.R., I opened those wells myself.
Yeah. And I shot him.
You shot him? Who gave you permission to do that?
Nobody. I did it all by myself.
Larry was born and raised in Texas, in Weatherford, Texas, so he came in, you know, guns blazing, big hat, full-blown Texas accent.
When I first met him, I thought, who is this character? We were in a room in Burbank, and Larry came in with his saddlebags filled with ice and champagne, 2 bottles of champagne. And then Larry popped with his cowboy hat and his, you know, saddlebags, pops the champagne. And it was at that moment, I think, that I thought, we're off to the races. I don't know how long this race is going to last, but we're going, and we're going to have a great time.
You can stop that Mr. Nice Guy act of yours because, J.R., my darling, I no longer give a damn about you either.
And the one event that put Dallas in the history books would be the Who Shot J.R. phenomenon of 1980.
I think we went as high as 34 episodes one season. Because the ratings were so huge, the advertising dollar obviously was huge, and they wanted to extend the season as much as possible.
The Who Shot J.R. episode was almost an accident. CBS had ordered the usual number of shows for the season, and then the show was so hugely successful that they asked for 4 additional shows. The season was supposed to end with Jock on trial.
I have to arrest you in connection with the murder of one Hutchinson McKinney.
The additional 4 episodes required a new cliffhanger.
I remember Leonard Katzman sitting down at some dinner talking about that, where they were going, my God, now what are we going to do? And it's got to have something to do with J.R., because they always were, you know, centered around the character of J.R. And somebody, whether it was Leonard or Art Lewis or somebody, said, well, why don't we just shoot the bastard?
So they just said, let's shoot the son of a bitch and see what happens. You know, we'll figure out who did it later. So I understand what happened. They shot me, and during the period of time when I was renegotiated, so that gave them an out. They could have killed me there, and that'd have been the end of it, but I knew they couldn't do that.
Then Larry, somebody with real business sense, took that moment to renegotiate his contract and hold out and make a very public display of, I might not come back if I don't get what I want, which then added more fuel to the question fire of, does he die? Is it a new actor? Who is J.R.?
When I got shot, I figured now's the time to really ask them for some more money, because the show was doing well, and then that summer the show just skyrocketed in the repeats. And I thought it was time to renegotiate it, which I did.
Survival's not enough. Never has been, never will be. I intend to be the biggest, most powerful independent in Texas.
Phil Capiz told me about what they were going to do, and let's keep this a secret. When the phenomenon grew, I started to get nervous whether they told me the truth or not. So I wasn't even 100% sure that they were going to stay with Kristen.
When Leonard had to decide who actually was going to do the shooting of J.R., there are no secrets in this town, so he had to deal with that fact. And the way he dealt with that fact is, first of all, there was no script that came out with the resolution of who did it. And the rough drafts of the shows that came out afterwards that made reference to it were under lock and key. So the person who did it was myself, about 6 or 8 other cast members, both guest cast and regular cast members, who actually filmed the shooting of J.R. Coming around the corner, camera tilts up, and there you are, gun blazing. I knew I didn't do it. Obviously, it wasn't going to be me. But in order to throw enough red herring out there so that there could be no pinpoint as to the person who did it, a lot of people shot J.R.
One of the more interesting rumors that I can remember from that summer is the idea that Mary Lee Stone was the one who shot J.R. because J.R. had caused Mary Lee's husband to commit suicide because he lost his money in the Asian oil deal.
The red herring that I remember that was floated was because it was broadcast in Australia before here. Somebody spread the rumor that Miss Ellie had done it. So once I heard that rumor, I thought, no way. So it was Kristen after all.
Of course, everybody wanted desperately to know the answer, who shot J.R., before it aired. And I just kept telling people, I don't know. I don't know. And I could pretty much honestly say that. I mean, we had an idea. But we did shoot different endings. I shot an ending I knew that wouldn't be used because I said something like, take that and that and that, you schmuck. When is Lucy ever going to call J.R. a schmuck?
I think everybody wants to think that they know, or they're in the know. I recorded it in a sound booth, so when you hear it, I said in the sound booth, Kristen, it was you who shot J.R. So nobody else was in the sound booth, just me, so I knew.
Is Kristen doing the right thing?
I think that Kristen always knows exactly what she's doing.
Well, there you go.
You keep secrets. That's it. It wasn't difficult. We had little cliffhangers every year, but, you know, I think the momentum and the strike and, you know, who shot him and all that, it just built and built and built to the breaking point.
It was havoc to live during that time in a good way. Because, you know, actors, part of the reason we do what we do is because we like people watching. And when everybody was watching, when the world was watching to see what was going to happen, you felt pretty full of yourself.
They would be flying over the Atlantic and say, you know, we're going to announce who shot J.R. on the airplane. You know, bizarre, weird stories that we heard.
It made the cover of Time. It made the cover of People. There were stories in Newsweek and the tabloids. Local CBS affiliates would tease their newscast by saying, coming up at 11, we've got yet another clue on the latest of Who Shot J.R., no matter how, you know, major or minor it was.
The Who Shot J.R. phenomena was, I know, more felt by Larry than anybody.
Okay. Well, now, is that really necessary?
Would you get rid of them? I don't want this turning into a circus.
As a cast, it was the first time we understood the portent of what our jobs were.
I think that was the longest, most miserable summer of everybody's life because, you know, I couldn't even go to the market anymore.
In England is when it really got just beyond understanding. I even had a Bobby who saw me crossing, and he stopped buses and stopped an ambulance, and I went across, and then he came over and got my autograph too. When Lynn and I were touring Europe and so forth, it was like being kings and queens, or prince and princesses. It was madness over there, and still is.
You couldn't escape it. You had J.R. bumper stickers, you had J.R. merchandise, you had J.R. beer. I mean, everywhere you went, there was Dallas.
The production company, Lorimar, decided to have a big party. So we all were in the restaurant 3 hours before the show aired in New York. And what we didn't know is we were in there with the doors locked. We were being held captive in this place. There were cocktails and dinner and everything, so by the time they ran the actual episode for us, it had even aired in Los Angeles. So the world knew Who Shot J.R.
The press was unbelievable. I mean, I've never seen paparazzi like that before in my life. And we were all in a little room, and we had a cake and, you know, all this stuff. And then to go out when we left, and the press went crazy. You know, of course, Mary Crosby was right there, front and center with Larry. It was great. It was terrific. What a special evening that was.
I thought it was a great idea to have Kristen shoot me. because Kristen was Sue Ellen's sister, and I'd had an affair with her, and she was pregnant. Not my child, somebody else's. But she thought it was my child. Everybody did.
I would have aimed better, I suppose. But I had the best motive, and I had it for years.
All I care about is that you start acting like a wife and a mother.
I am doing the best I can.
Well, it's just not good enough.
No, but it wasn't me.
The effect of the Who Shot J.R. episode was to make the cliffhanger far more important than it had ever been in television. All that the cliffhanger does now is keep the audience till the audience that you have till next year. Who Shot J.R. increased the audience because it became such a huge phenomenon.
It got people interested in Dallas that didn't ordinarily watch television.
How do you outdo Who Shot J.R.?
You can't touch us. Not now.
I don't know how. I mean, I just hand it to the producers and the writers for coming up with great storylines for year after year after year. That's a tough job.
I don't think we ever topped the hype of Who Shot J.R. But what we did is establish the cliffhanger as the fun part of the season. We knew we were never going to reach the kind of pinnacle that we did with that. And part of the brilliance of Leonard was he didn't try. He knew what he had done before, and that was going to propel us to however many years we got off the show. So everything else was a cliffhanger, not the cliffhanger.
Now, not only does every primetime soap opera use the cliffhanger, so do dramatic shows, so do situation comedies. Even reality shows use the idea of the cliffhanger to build interest from one week to another.
The success of Dallas was not shocking to me because I had so little experience in television that I didn't really realize how extraordinary it was until I had, a 20-year career and never had experienced anything like it again. To see the worldwide scope of it, though, was amazing.
I think one reason why Who Shot J.R. was such a huge event in 1980 is that it provided a temporary escape from some of the troubles of the real world at the time. The U.S. economy was down in 1980. There was a hostage situation in Iran. The U.S. had just pulled out of the Olympics. There was a lot of bad news in the world at the time.
We didn't realize what kind of a job we had until the Who Shot J.R. Now, several things happened to make that even greater than it actually should have been. One was the actor strike, which prolonged the question. The character of J.R. had already been famous, and shooting him, did he live or die, was a great gimmick. And usually in 3 months you find out the answer. Well, the actor strike elongated that by almost 3 additional months.
It was all about ratings, and it was all about what do we think we were going to get, and were we going to be was it going to be the highest rated show in the history of television, which it was, but it only lasted a year. So until the MASH finale.
It was quite something, and to this day, I mean, people know where they were. Like when Kennedy was shot, people realize where they were when he shot, and it kind of sticks in their mind. Same with Who Shot J.R.
Who Shot J.R. was so big, over 350 million people across the world in 50, 60 countries dropped what they were doing that night. Over 80 million people in the United States watched Dallas that night. That's how big it was.
We've become a part of television history, and it's a rare and really sacred ground occupied by very few people. And I think if you ask this question to all the cast members, the one thing that will resonate is the level of appreciation.
I think Dallas was a phenomenon because of the timing, the time of in the 80s it was. I think people were fascinated by Texans and the wealth and all of that. But then at the end of the show they'd say, yeah, but they have all that money and look at all the problems they have.
When I'm asked why I think Dallas was as successful as it was that I think people like to see people that rich, that miserable.
I think Dallas is the ultimate show of the 80s because the 80s are the so-called me decade, and J.R. was the centerpiece of Dallas, and J.R. was all about J.R. He was the ultimate me decade person.
The characters were fascinating, the storylines were wonderful, and it was money and opulence and glamour, and of course, greed and seduction and all that. It was entertainment. It was just pure entertainment.